Welcome to Think Forward, the podcast where higher education leaders share their hard-earned lessons, candid insights, and practical strategies that shape the future of our institutions. I'm your host, Rose Marie Sloan, an advocate for academic excellence and leadership development across the sector. This show is for rising and establishing leaders who want to lead with clarity, elevate student success, and drive real, measurable results. From navigating change to fostering engaged, mission-aligned cultures, each episode dives into the realities of leadership, where tradition meets transformation. Today, I have the pleasure of being joined by Dr. Chuck Pierce, Dean and Professor of Management at Oakland University School of Business in Rochester, Michigan. With nearly 3 decades of professional progressive leadership experience, Dr. Chuck brings deep insight into academic administration, strategic planning, and faculty development. We'll explore his journey, his leadership philosophy, and what it really takes to build high-performing teams in higher education. So let's think forward. Hi, Dr. Chuck. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Rose.
Good. It's good to see you.
You too.
Great. Well, let's dive in. Let's get started. Can you start by sharing with us your leadership philosophy and how you live this every day?
Well, you do live it every day when you work in academia. I'd say the philosophy is kind of multifaceted. The biggest part of it is probably that it's a service-oriented position when you're in a leadership role at a university. We're here to serve students, we're here to serve faculty, we're here to serve staff and the business community. So service orientation comes to mind. You also have to have good hearing. You need to be a listener. And so a philosophy that I've learned over time is that listen to all stakeholders before deciding, before acting. So service orientation, listening, and transparency. In academia, transparency is critical when you're making decisions about students or programs or activities. People need to know. So those are my main points.
Those are wonderful points. That service orientation I hear a lot of, and it's a wonderful leadership habit to have, and a wonderful characteristic on active listening. How often do we think we're listening, but really we're not hearing what someone is saying? You've shared some great habits. Can you think of one habit that you've had to unlearn to be more effective in your higher education environment? And how did it help you to become a better leader?
Well, I think it started as a kid. My patience was always kind of short. In sports, on the tennis court, on the golf course, on the baseball field, I didn't have a lot of patience. And that leads to frustration when things don't go your way. So you spill that over into academia, and patience is critical. And I've had to learn to be more patient and feel that I'm more patient now than I would have been decades ago in academia. That's the one thing that really stands out is patience.
Well, you and I have something in common, as we know we have other things in common too, our love for student success and academic excellence, but patience, not being born with patience and really having to learn and sometimes learn the lessons the hard way. And it sounds to me like you've had a lot of experience with learning the lesson the hard way.
Right.
Maybe one of the challenges that you face and how it's helped shape you to be better. We know that all leaders are facing challenges and experiencing resistance. And I'm sure that tests your patience as well when there's so much either pushback or pullback. I always like to say that I'd like people to dance during change processes or challenges. With this being the reality, regardless of title, regardless of where you sit in the organization, can you share with us an ongoing challenge of how this resistance is currently impacting you and maybe even your team?
Well, let me start by saying I'm a terrible dancer. And I'm really glad you're not asking me to dance on this podcast. a challenge, it's probably not just in academia, but a big challenge for leaders is just the size of teams and number of people that you have to involve in
Oh,
conversations and get approval from. And that just leads to time, actions that could maybe be done in a week or two or three, sometimes take months or sometimes years. And that's
yeah.
been one of the big challenges for me in academia is just, you know, the timelines for decisions and actions. And that's not unique to me. I think that's common in academia and probably in some parts of industry too. It's the number of people involved in making something happen. There's almost nothing that happens just from me as a leader. It involves so many people.
Yeah, I find in our academic institutions, there is what I like to call, quoting something that Lencioni said, is this death by meeting. We experience, I believe, a lot of resistance because there isn't the anticipation that a decision is going to be made. And so this is the way we've done things all the time. So I'm going to continue to do it this way until I make the decision to change. So because of this resistance and because of this constant struggle that you're talking about, in what ways do you think academic leaders today are either prepared or unprepared for the challenges that we're experiencing?
Well, many of us in academia were never prepared for leadership roles. When you obtain graduate degrees or advanced degrees in academia, most of that training involves teaching and research and service activities. Not very much of it is really prep to be a leader. So you kind of just work into these roles, or sometimes you just find yourself put in one. And, then you hope that there's some training involved or some coaching. But that I think is probably a large challenge for a lot of leaders in academia is that they probably didn't plan to ever be in a leadership position. I know I didn't when early in my career. I thought I was going to do research and teach, and that was it for my entire career. And I know I'm not alone on that.
No.
So, that's probably an issue that people get into these roles like I'm in, and then they have to ask themselves, okay, what can I do to coach or train myself to become, a better prepared leader?
Right. Well, let's dive a little into that. You asked yourself the question, what can I do to help either coach myself or be developed? And so let's explore that a little bit. What kind of support, development, and coaching do you wish you had had earlier in your career?
Well, I've been fortunate at the universities that I've been in leadership roles. They've provided training to me in the form of either a leadership academy or a department chair training or a dean training. So, the home universities often will provide that to people in these roles. A tactic I've taken is, I'll call it role modeling. Thanks for internet and LinkedIn and Facebook. And, I can look around the world and see what other leaders are doing and say, hey, that looks neat. I can do that. Or I wish I could do that. By following role models. And that's a common thing in industry too. We tend to follow our people we aspire to for leadership. And I do that. I watch what other business deans do around the world and learn from them. And that's free training. It's free. I probably have at least 10 more years in my career. And you don't want to become stagnant. You want to stay cutting edge on your leadership skills, leadership ideas. And so, yes, I'm always trying to learn and better myself. I should mention that, in our field, there are conferences we can attend to specifically for business deans that keep us upskilled and in the know as far as, how to lead a business school. So I attend those regularly as another way to make sure I'm staying cutting edge.
Excellent. Well, you mentioned cutting edge. So let's transition just a little bit to cutting edge. With COVID, we know that the world in terms of academic education changed, and online is not going away. Hybrid learning is not going away. And so talk about this trend How do we address the realities of what we know student learning needs are? And how do we adapt to these changes?
Yeah, the changes are happening quicker. If you think back to how long it took from a chalkboard to become a whiteboard, or an overhead projector to become PowerPoint slides, that took a very long time. But the pivot to online courses, online degree programs happened pretty quick. It's been in academia for a while. This might surprise some viewers, but I taught a distance ed course in the early mid 1990s.
Oh, wow.
Using TV and microphones, and so online isn't new, but COVID taught us that if you're a complete in-person or fully on-ground operation, that doesn't work. There are a lot of advantages of online learning. I'm a huge advocate of online learning, and there are advantages, and particularly with today's younger generations. We have to remember that a current 18 to 22-year-old basically grew up online. And so for them to have to come in a classroom and look at a whiteboard or take notes on a piece of paper is different to them than generations prior. They're used to discussions online and watching videos and dealing with an app on a phone or being on a computer. And so it's critical for today's generations, the younger generations. Also, online enables adult learners. People that are 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s working full time decades ago couldn't go to college.
There you go.
Today, we can make our programs more accessible by putting them online and capturing that adult learner who may need training in a particular discipline relative to their job. So online's a plus in my mind.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. You mentioned back in the 90s, the work that you did. I reflect back to after being an undergrad and then working as an elementary school teacher. That's how I started my career. And then moving forward to advance the education that I had, my master's program was completely online back in the early 2000s. And what it did for me as a mom, as a professional, and then, just as a community member as well. Those are some of the challenges that you mentioned. How are we going to provide access to our students? I'm a student first leader, student first academic professional. What do you think are the other pressing challenges that we're experiencing right now in terms of innovation, AI, international students? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, AI is critical, not just for business schools, but I think university-wide, AI is going to be important for students to learn how to use and also learn how to learn when faculty are using AI. So it's not only just a skill or a tech they need to learn, but it's also, being used, from faculty delivering courses. So that's critical. And again, that's not discipline specific. There are other challenges. People talk about the cost of education. You read these stories about decades ago, an 18-year-old could mow a couple lawns a summer, and that would be enough for tuition, room, and board at a university. And we're just not there anymore. The reality is that it costs more than just being able to mow a couple of lawns. So universities are becoming more creative in how they deliver programs. How many credits a degree is, for years and years and years, a traditional undergrad degree might be 120 credits. There are some universities now that are offering 90 credit undergraduate degrees.
Interesting.
And that reduces the cost of a degree because it's fewer credits and there's a cost per credit. So, AI is critical. I think our accessibility of programs and cost of programs, universities around the country and world are challenged by this and trying to come up with ways to, overcome these issues.
You talked about being creative as, a faculty member, a professional leader, in the space of developing others to be more effective in what they do, writing content, curriculum, delivering. How do you see creativity playing an important role in the work of academic leaders, not just faculty members, but also leadership throughout at every level.
It's fascinating because sometimes we refer to all the activities that faculty do, teaching, research, etc. Sometimes it's just couched under creative activity or creative work. I didn't think I was very creative as a kid. I mean, I was horrible in art classes, and we would read books in English and students would talk about themes, and I was like, I don't see that on page 8. So I had to learn to be creative, and again, it's role modeling. I learned from others. Creative ideas don't necessarily just have to come from you as an individual. They can come from other leaders.
I love that.
So, and I just don't know if you can easily train on creativity. Put a dean in a 1 hour or half a day program. Can you make them more creative? It overlaps with innovation.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do something innovative, do people consider that creative or not? But creativity is critical. It hasn't been one of my areas of excellence as a kid, but when you get put in leadership roles in academia, I think you become more creative because you have to.
Yeah.
You can't keep offering the same topic, the same lecture, the same course year after year after year. You have to change. We call it continuous improvement.
Mm-hmm.
And continuous improvement is critical for student learning and requires creativity.
Yeah, and I keep thinking about not just past generations, this generation, but the next generation. Right. What is going to be most important for them in terms of being part of a higher education institution and their learning needs? How do you address that?
Yeah, when you watch these reels of what robots can do,
yeah,
sometimes I have dreams that the university has a bunch of faculty robots walking around and students are interacting with non-humans. I don't know. I think future generations are going to have to be able to learn from technology, from advanced technology that we probably haven't even seen yet.
Yeah.
More virtual reality, more 3D, more immersive. I just think that's probably coming, and I don't know that it's just in one discipline. But I think the learner is going to, need to be ready. Just the other day, I went into a summer camp with high school students, and I was really surprised. A lot of them were in the room with notebooks and 3-ring binders.
Oh.
And I haven't seen that in a long time. Usually students today are walking in with just a phone or a laptop or nothing, and they just stare at you. And I had a room full of students with 3-ring binders and notepads, and I thought, well, they have to be ready with more tech.
Absolutely.
The tech can't just be a 3-ring binder at their point, but I don't know if they were told to do that. But that students will need to be ready for tech, very advanced tech in learning.
Very early on, yes.
Yep.
Everywhere I go, I see our younger generation very involved with tech. I know that one day when I experience grandkids, that they're probably going to be teaching me things at this level that I'm not ready to do now. Let's talk a little bit about credibility. You lead across departments, disciplines, cross-functional teams.
Right.
How do you do that? By building trust, inspiring innovation, leading with both character and competence, because you have all of these competing priorities, lots of which you've talked about today, and I'm sure you feel overwhelmed, exhausted, frustrated at times. So how do you do this effectively? Give us some help, some advice.
Yeah. Well, when you're a dean of a business school or a dean of arts and science or a dean of engineering, there's typically multiple disciplines within that unit you're leading. And I, like other deans, am primarily an expert in just one of those disciplines. Yeah. So I'm not an expert in finance or accounting or information systems. So you have to rely on department chairs and faculty being the experts in knowledge in those areas. And so you turn to them, you listen to them. I'm not going to make a decision or an informed action about something related to finance or accounting without listening to and talking to chairs or faculty in those areas, because I don't know those areas. I know management, particularly HR management,
Right.
and so that's a challenge at universities, and it's probably similar in industry too. I mean, high level leaders in industry aren't experts in every single area
No.
of that industry domain. So the key is trusting others, listening to others, and who's in those leadership roles
Right.
that you're trusting.
Yeah, I hear the active listening coming through and building trust.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
important, an important part, that integrity piece, right? Our character, who we are down deep in the roots. I was recently working with a group of chairs and, listening to the really hard work that they do and listening to their overwhelmed, exhausted, frustrated role. The role of a chair is really a hard role.
It is.
Yeah, I have a lot of compassion and empathy for what the chairs are being asked to do in today's academia. And one of the revelations that came out was subject matter experts and really looking at themselves as subject matter experts. But that's not all who they are. They're being asked to do an enormous amount of tasks. So speak about the chair role for a moment.
Well, I was a department chair at 2 universities. And it is, I might argue that it might be one of the most difficult leadership roles.
Yes, I would agree.
I think that being a department chair probably had more challenges for me than being a dean. So you are correct. You have to be a subject matter expert in that discipline that you're chairing. And you've got faculty that are asking you questions. You have deans asking you questions. You have the university. And there's a lot of varied tasks. You're making teaching schedules. You're, trying to schedule research consortia. It's all over the place in a department chair role. But fortunately, like my dean role, universities often offer chair training. They'll have some type of leadership academy or chair training. But I would argue, like a dean, it's important for chairs to also look around the world. Find a role model. Maybe you have a colleague at another university who's a department chair, and you can connect with them on occasion and ask them what they do for, challenging situations. I know I did that as a chair, and I do that as a dean. I talk to other business deans all the time.
Yeah.
I'd say, hey, here's a scenario. How do you handle it at your university?
Right. Well, I love that you have those cross-discipline conversations, cross-university situations and conversations as well. As we wrap up here, I've learned so much about not just the work you do, but your journey. And I am inspired by what's next for you, or the potential of what's next for you. So 2 things. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years, and how will you get there?
Well, ideally, I'll see myself in the same spot I am right now. I do love where I work. I love the position I'm in. I think that, it's kind of like getting through life. When apps come out on a phone, you got to learn how to use the apps or you're going to be left behind.
Right.
When new software comes out on a computer, if you don't learn it, you're left behind. I kind of have a fear every day of somehow being left behind as a business dean. I don't want to be left behind, so I'm trying to make sure I'm learning and doing what I need to do to be cutting edge. It's not easy. And, every place is different, depending on where you're a business dean and the resources that you have. And so I'm hoping that 5 years from now, 10 years from now, our business school is at the forefront of cutting edge improvements, technology and course delivery and faculty's research portfolios and executive ed programs. Ideally, it's right where it needs to be at that time point. It's hard to do today. Things change really quickly, and it's hard in academia to pivot that fast because it's, again, not just a one-person decision. It involves lots of people to make these moves.
Humans want to pivot quickly when they see that change will be impactful and what they can influence and being part of that change. But you're right. academia doesn't move as quick, which is why I love the conversation of how do we think forward. And we really do, Dr. Chuck, need leaders like you in our organizations who have that forward thinking mentality. So as we wrap up here today, do you have any final thoughts or comments that you'd like to make that would inspire all of us to think forward?
Well, my hope is that business deans aren't replaced by AI robots in the next decade. Just give me 10 more years to try and improve before a robot has my position.
Yes.
It's a lot of talk in the news today about jobs that are being affected by AI and robotics and automation. And I enjoy this job, and I'm going to stay cutting edge and do better than a robot.
Well, I would agree with you. I love the work that you're doing, and I'm so happy that we've had a chance to have this conversation. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your expertise. And thank you for your dedication to this profession and to our students.
Thanks, Rose. I enjoyed it.
Good.